1:10 on August 5th, and we have the pleasure of being here with Michael Gross with the Wingman's Path to Positivity. How are you, Michael?
I am well, thank you, Laura. It's been, yeah, I'm doing great, actually. Although I mentioned to you when we just started that since we last spoke to set up this interview time, I had hurt my back, and it became quite a great lesson for me. And we'll talk about that later. But other than that, in just answering your question, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm learning my lessons, and I'm sending out a great vibe, and the more I can practice that vibration, you know what happens. The better things seem to keep getting. It's been wonderful learning that lesson, and it's just been fun. And I thank you for asking me. And that's a long way to say, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm spectacular, and I love that it's 111 and it's new beginnings all the way around. The conversations that we were having in the lead up to the conversation that you have an opportunity to tune into today were out of this world, and it really reminded me about the fact when you introduced your back pain, which has a symbolic significance as well to it that is beyond just the literal. And when we start looking at life from that deeper perspective, the multidimensional layering cake of now.
Oh, I love that. The multi-dimensional layering cake of now.
Yes.
That is great. That is great. And you know what? I think you can go both ways with that as well, actually. I think you can either really sort of peel back those layers while you're in the moment, or just let it all go and just be in that moment and allow whatever happens. And I think both ways you're creating, you're manifesting your own desire, as long as you do it with intention. Either way, I think would be very interesting, and a great way to live. And I like both of them, because one, you're really curious, and the other is you're just in life flow. And when you're in life flow, of course, things flow. When you're in life flow, things flow.
That is precisely the point. And I love when you mention about intention, because intention is about intentional direction of energy. And you've got your book, the Wingman's Path to Positivity, that I'd love for you to be able to share.
Hold on. Here you go. The Wingman's Path to Positivity. There you go.
So you've got the Wingman's Path to Positivity, and you've got some back pain, and you're talking about cutting through the multidimensional layering cake moment of now, this ever eternal moment, the only one that ever comes. And what I hear you saying is that you may be willing to accept some responsibility for the pain in your back that you're experiencing, because of the pattern that it's highlighting for you to be able to clear, so that the energies in motion no longer have to sit within you and instead are able to actually flow.
I think that's one way of saying it. Absolutely.
I doubt anyone else would probably express it quite that same way, but
you know what? But yes. Well, and that leads in perfectly to I will go with what happened since my back pain, right? So I tweak my back, and I'm all pissy, and I get upset about it, and of course, where does my focus go? On my pain. And so now I'm feeling like the victim and getting beat up. And this was actually Saturday, I guess. So Saturday I'm feeling that, and I'm like, really, whatever. And Sunday now I wake up and I'm like, you're the wingman on the wingman's path, dude. Like, what are you doing here? Like, what are you, just swimming in victimhood here? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, that everything is vibrational, not physical. So when you say about taking responsibility, and this came up in a coaching session, because I was telling someone about the same situation. I said, yes, my back pain is 100% vibrational. And he says, really, you believe that? You don't think it could have just been a physical type of thing? And I said, I live my life by that idea. if something happens differently than that, I don't care. I'll still take the responsibility, good or bad. If it's good for me, I'll take the responsibility and I'll cheer myself for it. And if it's bad for me, I will take the responsibility and go about setting my intention to correct it. So when I talk with intention, or I think we're in agreement, you just say it far more eloquently than I do. But please.
What was coming into my mind is about the need for intention with the intentional direction of energy, but then it's also the fact that you're literally experiencing inner tension because you were holding on to something that was not of this ever present now moment, I would imagine.
Yes, and that's a great question as well, because I'm not sure I have figured out what that was. And my assumption will be it will come to me soon, though, because I have 100% changed my vibration around the injury. And what I did was I started visualizing myself healthier and stronger, and just being that person who, and part of it could be, part of it certainly could be physical. Of course, it happened because I've been exercising a lot more and eating healthy, and I've been getting into a real program about that. And I took it up a step, maybe a notch too quick, maybe for me, and maybe that's a lesson as well. Like, you're doing great. Just keep, don't block that.
Right.
I didn't even think about that, Laura. That could be the lesson. Like, take it easy, champ. You want to be doing this 6 months from now, not six. You don't have to worry about if you're doing great right now. Does that make sense?
Fully. We live in such an instant gratification culture that so oftentimes it's like we go and do a workout at the gym, and then we go home and look in the mirror and get upset that our six pack isn't automatically there. It's just like reward, and I want it now.
Right.
So
right.
It's like we somehow have this expectation. And I notice it even with myself, who is, of the millennial generation, being 33. And it's just, we've been raised with such instant access that we expect our results so much faster. And it's just like we forget the fact that, yes, there is the desire to reach our goals, but at the same time, we want to reach our goals consistently over the long run, which is actually why I recommend a vibrational diet. It's just like, if you actually understand that the faster your energy vibrates, then the less energy is going to need to hang on to you in the present moment, because you can be present and it can go where it needs to go. It can just nourish your body as you appreciate it for satiating you and giving your cells everything that it needs, and then let that which no longer serves go, instead of needing to hang on to it as a form of self-protection.
Love it. I think I love that. And so when you say eating high vibrationally, what would that mean to you? Or eating vibrationally, what would that look like?
Interesting that you would actually automatically assume I'm talking about eating habits, because what I mean is literally so yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, great point. Although eating is also something you're putting in your body as well. So of course you can figure out what high vibration foods are. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure out, fruits and vegetables are probably better for you, vibrationally speaking. But
that's who you are. Like, yes, and specifically each of those, we each have a different blood type. There's the Eat Right for Your Blood Type diet that's always been really
great point.
helpful.
Great point.
Yes. Not all foods are good for all body types, or
and you have to find yours. You have to find you have to find your way with that. I agree with that. But let's go back to your point, which I think is even better, what you're feeding yourself, because obviously we're talking about, you're preaching to the choir, right? I mean, one of the things I say the Wingman's path has taught me, and there are many, but it's that I can really practice any vibration that I want to be sending out. So if I want to, and vibration creates your reality. Mm-hmm. So, so many of us think our reality is created by our our vibration is created by our reality, as opposed to our reality being created by our vibration. And they can go back. I mean, it can be a momentous circle right there. Where, especially Well, either way, good or bad. I mean, if things are going bad for you, you start focusing on, what you focus on expands. I'm not bringing this concept to life. I'm not. This is not a new concept for us, of course. But what you focus on expands, and of course, if you're focusing on your reality, and your reality is lousy, well, you know what's going to happen. You're going to, of course, the universe will send you more of that same exact reality. So what I have found is figure out what I want my vibration, my reality to be, and then practice the vibration of that reality.
You have to become a vibrational match to that which you seek. Otherwise, you won't be on the level of it. It's like if you've got a chart with 10 different levels and you're at a 4, but your dream's at an 8, you can't reach it. You can't stretch to it. It's just like you can stretch to maybe a 5 and get somebody to help you up, but you can't get to an 8 unless an 8 offers you a hand up. And that's the beauty of mentorship, which is why it's sometimes, well, it's not sometimes, and I shouldn't say always because that's a definitive or a universal, but at the same time, your support system is so fundamental. Having good wingmates matters.
Having good wingmates matters. No question about it. Everyone can use a good wingman or wingmate. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's funny. Of course, I do the Wingman's Path. And for those of you who know the Wingman's Path, I do a practice every morning for the people in my group. And I video it Monday through Friday, I should say. And it's funny because in my mind, I think, all right, how can one be a wingmate to so many different people? And because they all have different goals and objectives and desires and whatever. And that's how the whole Wingman's Path started. Because in my mind, I was thinking, well, just start practicing positive energy, because positive energy helps across the board. If you can get yourself into that positive vibration, you're going to be you're going to be coming up with better plans and better visions and better everything, right? If you can get that vibe going for yourself. But what I have found is it takes not only practice, but consistent practice. Like people always will ask me, well, Michael, what's the one practice? Everyone's looking for the golden key, to nirvana.
Of course.
Which of course I have, and I'll tell you about that in a second too. But
it's gonna cost you this much. No, I'm just kidding.
But no, I'll tell you, because one of the practices I've come up with, and I don't know if I've done it on the path yet or just in the coalition. I'll explain the difference between the two. But I have found nirvana. Appreciate everything. Just start appreciating everything that happens to you, for you, with you, at you, whatever comes your way, appreciate it. And for me, it's been a great practice to get myself going in that way. But I'm sensing not necessarily from you the appreciate everything. No, okay. I thought you made that face.
I make this face often when I'm connecting dots.
Okay.
And so dots is not only information, though, I've realized in the last few months, particularly as the darkness of what's going on culturally, socially, economically, politically is really unfolding. The realization that struck me that I believe ties to what you were saying because of how you were saying it and all of what underlays what is being discussed is the fact that I lost the plot in that moment.
You lost? You know what?
It trailed off. It trailed off. My beautiful thought was the plot that was lost.
You know what? You'll get it back. We'll keep talking. It'll be there. It'll be there.
It will be.
It'll be there. You know what? I'll talk until you get it back. If you want, I'll say something about practicing positive energy. So what I try and come up with, or not what I try and come up with, what I come up with is a different practice every day. And I don't mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be different every day, but a practice every day of how I want to make sure I'm sending, what vibration I want to make sure I'm sending out that day. Because I find if you can get yourself started in that way, you get a little momentum going. And really, when you realize life is a vibration game, you realize the game is momentum. if you get a little bit of momentum going in your favor, it makes it that much easier to keep yourself positive. And one of the things I often say, let me just finish that, and then you'll jump in, is when you're practicing positivity, I always say it doesn't mount to a hill of beans. It doesn't matter if you're practicing positivity if you can't figure out how to reframe a situation when you're getting knocked into the rabbit hole. And something knocks you in, because it's life. Something's gonna kick your butt in, and you're gonna get down for a second, or for however long you get down for. You've got to be able to turn that around. You got to be able to turn that around.
Well, that completely ties into how it works with people's perception of themselves, the world, and people.
Okay.
And if we think about our perception of ourselves, the world, and people, do we believe that the world is safe? Do we believe people are safe? Do we believe that it is safe to be us? That really has a big influence on our victim tendencies.
I agree. That's a great way to say it.
Compared to when we actually understand that the empowered aspect of the victim is actually the victor, or the one that knows how to win. The one.
Say that again. I'm not sure I understood that.
The victor is the empowered side of the victim.
Okay.
So if you think about the pattern of victim, you have victor and victim together.
Right.
Both sides of the same coin.
Okay.
That just appear to be facing different directions, because one is scared and one is sacred. So if you're playing Scrabble, you would have access to the same letters, but it would just be dependent on whether the board's position had 2 points on the C or the R as to whether you were going to play which one, right? So we decide which cards we're going to play. And so we can really choose that positive attitude and fill ourselves with faith and that trajectory of love and the upward momentums of energy, which is energy in motion, which is what emotion is. We can really put our energy into the momentums of those, or we have to understand the negative momentums of the downward spirals of emotion that start at boredom and that propel us downwards. And then what we have to understand is that in the moment when something shows up for us and we're triggered, we have to be very conscious in our own minds whether we're going to perpetuate the negative thought cycle that has been triggered by the moment, that then brings all of the momentums of the past undealt with energies in motion that you suppressed, repressed, depressed, compressed, tried to pretend don't exist within your inner system. You bring all of those momentums with you in that moment. So when you're triggered, it all shows up, which is why you have to really be clear. Is this mine in the first place? Or is this lineage?
Yeah. Or is this my, I more go to, is this my subconscious thinking it's protecting me still from long ago, when it doesn't realize I have a new goal or a new desire I want to manifest, and it thinks it's doing me a good favor. By doing that, I find from what you were just saying about the negative energies, to continue with where I was as well, to circle back, is you've got to find a way to change that. And what I attempt to do always is I attempt to soften my vibration around it, because if something gets you and you're irritated by it, you're sending out a sharper vibration about it. And of course, the vibration you're sending is just attracting more of that sharpness, right? That negativity.
Yeah.
So what I try and do is, like, I'll give you an example. Today's practice on the Wingman's Path on the Facebook group was, I'm just collecting data. I'm just collecting data. And the reason I use that is I start saying that when life kicks me in the butt a little bit, because I don't want to focus on the butt kicking as much. I want to focus on the fact that, you know what? Okay, I'm just collecting some data right now. It softens that vibration a little bit, and it enables me to turn that momentum, at least start turning that momentum around and get it going in the positive direction. So
until or unless we get locked in that state of information gathering, that we stay armchair warriors. That pretend to do something because we're gathering information online, for instance.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't think of it in those terms, but absolutely great point. So sort of a, I guess what I would call paralysis by analysis type of thing. Exactly. Yeah. That's a great point. And I think this is more in terms of when something happens to you as opposed to when you're actually doing research or you know what I'm saying, where you're, I didn't think about it being right. You get online, you could be there all day. I'm just collecting data. I'm just collecting data. Yeah, well, that's no different than any practice or really anything in life, right? There's a good and a bad to it. Something good. If you use fire wrong, it's not real good. But if you use it right, you're having a great meal. Again, I'm going back to food. Oh my God.
No, food must be near lunchtime. No, I'm just kidding. But truly, that is so significant for us to be intentional. Where our energy goes, our intention flows, and then we put our energy and create. And then we ask, are we on the cause or effect spectrum of the creative polarity?
Excellent point.
Are we reacting to life or creating? Because those two are the same letters, reactive, creative in Scrabble.
Oh, I like that. Reactive, creative. But in a way, they're sort of, when you say reactive, that has more of a negative term, of course, than creative. But let's face it, 90% is probably how you react to life coming at you. The game, of course, is to keep your vibration high, to keep looking for the positives, to keep looking at what's going right, as opposed to, of course, focusing on, the momentum of either the negative energy or the positive energy makes it very easy to continue in that direction. And, it's no different. We'll take that back to science and Sir Isaac Newton's first law of motion. Of course, an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest. If you can get yourself moving in a positive direction, it's just going to make it that much easier to keep moving. It doesn't mean, though, that there won't be the end of that equation, an object at rest stays at rest, unless acted upon by an outside energy force.
Right.
And that outside energy force can be something that happens to you in life, can be one of your thoughts, can be, it can be anything, either way. And so you've got to do it with intention. You've got to, because otherwise it'll suck you in. It'll just suck you down the rabbit hole.
Well, it's literally, I grew up with having it called the law of the vacuum, which isn't actually a law, but it's just a reflection of the fact that every empty space will be filled either intentionally or unintentionally. And we have to choose what we put into a space. So it's like Palo Santo, for instance, as a clearing agent, just like sage that you would use to smoke your space.
Okay.
It's clearing, but it actually also infuses intention back into the space that has now been cleared. So it's twofold.
I like that.
Very much part of that shift in our process. It's like if we're also healing, for instance, that language in itself, if you're in healing, then you are always going to have a problem to heal because, you're healing in process. And
absolutely.
If you say that, like, I am healed and you don't believe it, then your subconscious is going to refute that. So then you also have to have supportive practices to be able to support yourself through those temporary transition periods where you are not yet where you intend to be and yet are becoming through the journey. So one of the most helpful is just a setup statement of, I am now in the process of.
Well, I love it. I might use that as my practice tomorrow. I am in the process of. I am
now in the process of.
Now, even better. I'm now in the process of. All right, I'll use that.
And then you just insert whatever transition or transformation you're making, because your subconscious can't say, but no, because you are in process. So it actually supports you in inserting that baby idea into a very hostile environment and offering it support.
Again, that is a way of softening your vibration, because when you're saying that, when you were saying, I'm now in the process of, you are you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're not fighting the fact that the thought behind the thought is, I'm not successful. What am I talking about? And then you're, of course, sending out that duplicitous vibration, and everything's getting messed up in your life again. I love that. No, I think that is a perfect a perfect practice to use anytime.
By all means. And also, I said, by all means, use that. And then the other thing that you mentioned that I feel is really important to bring up because of the whole positivity and, fake it till you make it movement. I can't stand that. I've never really been able to really fully understand. Well, I can understand it. I can appreciate it. I get it. But what I feel like so many people are not understanding when they're actually saying it, because it's the habit, is that if you are faking it until you make it, what's the emphasis on? Making it or faking it?
Well, you better make sure your emphasis on making it and not faking it, of course, but of course.
Right? But universally, the emphasis is on the fake it, because you don't feel like you've made it. So then you're entering in that vibration of falsehood that then actually shifts and bastardizes. I don't mean to use that word if that's offensive. But then that's also, even the political correctness piece is just another way to divide and separate us from the ability to have these conversations, because then you're like, ooh, did I just say the wrong thing? And then you get so sidetracked down another rabbit hole that takes you away from an important one.
I will go with 2 points on that. One, I don't use the word fake it till you. I don't use that as a practice, although because I understand what you're saying. But before I go back, before we talk about that, I do want to emphasize the fact that neuroscience will tell you that if you do say the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, sooner or later your brain will wrap around it and you will believe it. So the fake it till you make it thing has truth in it. But I get it has truth in it. However, it's like what you just said. Where are you putting your focus? Where are you putting your focus? Because if you're saying I'm faking it till I'm making it, what I guess what you want to say, because this is a great point you're bringing up, because it's that whole thought behind the thought idea again. You've got to make sure I guess I follow both. In other words, like neuroscience, as I just said, will tell you if you keep saying it enough, sooner or later your brain will wrap around it and you will believe it. And of course, once you believe it, it gets into your subconscious, and of course your subconscious influences your behaviors to success or to failure without you even knowing it, right? So if you can get that into your subconscious somehow, some way, and certainly repetition is the best way to do that. Mm-hmm. The faking until you make it. I guess I think your idea of saying I'm now in the process of, mm-hmm, is similar, but better vibrationally. Higher vibration, right? No question about it. No question about it.
Then gives us a greater vantage point, because it's like, so I have a teaching called the High Rise of Emotional Awareness, which is basically the teaching that Abraham, the consciousness channeled by Esther Hicks, brings in, which is the emotional guidance system that has 22 different emotions. And then basically there's another teaching that is of a high rise or an apartment building theory that basically says it's the same address top to bottom, but a completely different perspective if you're on the ground floor compared to in the penthouse, right? So take those two teachings together, and then you have the high rise of emotional awareness theory with 22 different levels of emotion, with depression in the basement, where it's dark and everything feels heavy and too much and on top of you, and the victim, because it's just so immobilizing when all of the momentums of all of the things that you've held against yourself to keep yourself out of the present moment where all of our power exists is on top of us and keeping us separate from the truth of our divine power and what we came here to do. When we hold ourselves hostage to the past, then that becomes what interferes with our ability to create the future that we desire for ourselves. True lie, truly.
I agree with what you're saying 100%, of course. And when you're talking about the emotions, though, I think one of the reasons people fail at moving up that elevator or that the emotional scale is because they look to do it too far up. They're looking to go from the basement to the penthouse without taking the necessary steps to get there. If they just, what's the saying? Well, one, trust the process, but there's a saying, I forget by who, maybe Martin Luther King, who said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step.
Yeah.
Or a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Once you just have to get yourself moving in that direction. Back to what we were just speaking about before, getting the momentum going in your direction. So maybe when you're depressed, maybe you just look to see if you can hopefully get to where you're angry. So you're moving up a little. Not that you want to be angry forever, but it's certainly a better feeling than being depressed.
Yeah.
So you just have to focus on that first step, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I think we're
using gratitude as the elevator. I was going to say, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, we're both saying the same things a little bit differently, but the same idea. Using gratitude as the elevator, you can't go wrong. Yeah, obviously. Someone just said to me the other day, we did a practice somewhere of saying thank you 100 times. Just say the word thank you 100 times. Now, of course, on the Wingman's Path, when I say that, I say, listen, I want you to, that's neuroscience will tell you, if you just say it. But I want you to think about something you're thankful for as you're saying it. To get that emotional part of it, of course. Right. And I know you know that because that's the elevator to take you up to the, to the top floor.
That's like the Ho'oponopono prayer from Hawaii, the tradition that has just 4 simple statements. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Please forgive me. In whatever order you choose to say them.
I call that a karma cleaner. A karma cleaner.
Right.
Like I say that and just like, all right, well, I just want to make sure I'm, because it came to me not saying forgive. I actually shortened it to I forgive you and I forgive me, but I go back and forth between those. That and Ho'oponopono. But it came to me at a time when I just lost my thought with that, so we'll have to come back to that one as well. Forgiveness, karma cleaner, because I started thinking about the fact that so often I think in the middle of life something happens to your karma, possibly something negative sticks to your karma without you even realizing it. Sometimes, like someone says something in the background that's sort of negative, and you don't hear it, but you hear it, or your subconscious holds on to it. You don't hear it, but your subconscious does. So I like to clean my karma every once in a while, and make sure I just clean off all those things that have attached to me that I don't necessarily want with me. And that's how I do it. By saying I forgive you, and in my mind I forgive the person who did me wrong, so to speak, and I forgive me for allowing myself to be in a situation to have wrong done to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I usually end up, when I'm doing that, forgiving myself a whole lot more than I forgive the other people or anyone else. I end up with that. But I hijacked your whole Ho'oponopono conversation.
Yeah, well, it's just that's one very useful and practical tool that you can use. And then another one is actually there's a forgiveness mantra.
Okay.
The forgiveness decree in the Head, Heart, and Hand Decrees booklet. So basically, I can share that with you. It's from the teachings of the Ascended Masters with Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and she channeled the consciousness of the Ascended Masters, which was what I wanted to actually speak into earlier on when I lost my train of thought about the fact that your pain is so relevant to the fact that we are here to become the Ascended Masters. Like, we are here to become the ones that we've been waiting for. The Ascended Masters, the great legends of the great books, those were the ones whose stories have finished. They've completed. They had a tale to finish having been told. But we are the heroes of our own stories, still narrating the story and walking every mile of it, one step at a time. That's how every journey is taken. And pain is very much part of what helps us unveil who we always were and came here to be.
I have no argument with you on that. Okay. I agree. I like that. one of the things I mentioned when you're talking about you're on your journey, but of course, being on your journey, you want to take the tools with you that will help you get over the challenges and the obstacles and get to the other side, of course. And the ascended masters, as you call them, are good tools to have. So they've done this. Like that's what amazed me when I wrote the book, actually, because in writing the book, I said, look, I'm not telling you anything. Who am I? I'm not going against the Bible or Ralph Waldo Emerson or Sir Isaac Newton or Albert Einstein, whoever, or Buddha. I'm not. I'm just following what they're saying, and I'm taking it down to 1 minute, turning what they're saying into a 1 minute practice, just so I can practice it and practice it and practice it. So if you read those books, and I have read a lot of them, they're as I say, you might glass over a lot of what, it's hot. It's above my pay grade, I guess I would say. Yeah. However, when I can minimize it down and break it down into what I call the smallest common denominator, and I find that practice for me, that what they're saying in this particular segment of their book or of their stuff is very helpful to me. Then I get the message. Not only do I get the message, but I start practicing what they're saying, and I know in practicing what they're saying, I'm on the right path. Right? Because they're an ascended master.
Yeah.
As opposed to turning what they say into a cliche. And, we all know, like I used one today, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Well, you can say that, at a cocktail party to someone, and everyone understands what you mean. Yeah. But when you practice it, and you practice the emotion of it, you practice the fact that, okay, I am taking a single step. I still got 999 miles or 1,000 miles to go, but at least I'm moving in that direction. It's a different vibration. Excuse me, I'm getting a little passionate on that one.
I love your passion, because passion is actually the P in Peaceful Inner Warriors United, which is the movement that I've been really working to create a system around to make peace actionable, so that we can actually go inward and know how to do that through practice. So I've created a special practice with videos. Literally, I just got them over to my videographer to be able to figure out the best that was said, because I showed up without a script and winged it. But ultimately, that's how we intuitives work best. So when you've marinated in the crock pot of personal growth and development for as long as what, some of us have, myself, like I've been a certified coach, teacher, speaker for the last 10 years. It's like all of that helps it be so that in the moment I show up and I'm ready to go. And it's like, this actually, I feel like, is relevant to the Wingman's path of positivity, or to path of positivity, because it's just like, so oftentimes we think that we need to be prepared for the moment, and we need to, have all of our ducks in a row, and we need to be ordered and collected. And we have so many expectations that we place on ourselves unnecessarily. And it's just like, do you understand truly at the end of the day that everybody is so fixated on themselves and how they look and what's going on, that they're really not paying attention to the things that you didn't get perfect? And the fact that we wait to get perfect means that in the moment when opportunity knocks and we thought we needed to prepare and said no, we can choose to change that trajectory of our lives by, instead of choosing fear, which is where the preparation would take us if we don't practice, so that it's already part of our staple and then just becomes something we perform.
Absolutely. Of course, who was it? Mark Twain, who said, when you just said winged it, he said, I find it, if I have to make an hour speech, I can do it tomorrow. If I have to make a 3-minute speech, I need 2 weeks preparation to wing it, or something like that. Don't discount, certainly you're not discounting preparation. But I guess it depends on how you're doing it. If you're preparing from fear of doing a poor job, or if you're preparing from confidence that you want to make sure hey, I just want to give the best performance that I can. I want to help these people. I want to do whatever, whatever you're doing in that situation. It's a different way to approach it. Again, I guess it's your intention and how you're approaching it with that.
Totally. Intention is
But
everything. Where our intention goes, our attention flows. And interestingly, my friend Azriel over on Facebook, she actually said the violet flame is also a karma cleanser. So she's connected to the teachings of the Ascended Masters, which Saint Germain gifted humanity with the violet flame in order to transmute our karma collectively and personally as well. So we can actually call on the violet flame to transmute karma, and you can use a two-sentence frame. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. And you can just repeat that as a mantra, and you can do it for 15 minutes a day. And if we actually did this in a group context, if that's something that you wanted to do as part of the Wingman's Path to Positivity, would love to team up with you and do some decrees if that seems to be a practice that might work for you.
I was just gonna say, I'll do that. I'll try that practice.
Cool.
So wait, I am a being of violet fires.
Yeah.
And then what was the next part of it?
I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. And you can sing it however flows for you, right? That's just my Gaelic queen that comes.
Right. It is. And I talk about turning practices into your own, making them your own, of course. I find any type of, I would almost call that sort of a chant, what you were just doing there. And I always, any chant, last week, this week, my new chant's going to be this. Last week, my chant was Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, from from Buddhism, of course, or the, I forget the branch of Buddhism it's from. But it's, as a matter of fact, it's funny because when I came across that, actually, I was hanging out with someone who was very into that, and I was like, oh, I had, when I was in Thailand at one time, I used to chant that a little bit. So I was like, oh, I want to get back to that for a little bit, and I was trying to remember what it meant. And as I was reading about it, the guy who came up with it, and this is back in the 1200s, I forget, his name escapes me right now. But what he said was, does a baby need to know how milk helps him grow to drink it? When he drinks it, it's just good. So just say, you can just say the practice. And I find that the same with almost any mantra. And what I really find, though, is you never know what practice is going to connect with you. So when you give me a practice like that, and I say, oh, I'll give that a shot, I try, you talk about law of attraction. So the law of attraction, I come up with a practice. Actually, in the Wingman's Path, I do one practice in the morning for everyone, a video, and then I have a private membership group where we do 5 minutes of practicing. So we do sort of like 4 practices every day for 5 minutes. Cool. Yeah, it's been awesome. So I come up with a lot of, different practices, and sometimes I use the same practices. I basically practice where I'm feeling that day. If I'm getting beat up, I'll do a practice to help me turn that around. If I'm doing great, I'll do a practice to keep that momentum going. Yeah. But what I find is, I was circling back to the law of attraction. Practice. I get 20 practices a day that bounce. It's like, stop already. Like, oh my god. Practices. Because I hear something and I'm like, oh, that could be a great practice. You can just hear, something on. I'll be listening to sports talk radio and someone will say something. I'm like, oh, I could use that as a practice. And it's amazing how often I just start practicing practices that I didn't even know were practices. You know what I'm saying? But they become practices, of course.
Maxwell Maltz talks about that as your RAS, reticular activating system, being attuned to seek out practices. So you are naturally looking for those life hacks to be able to share because your RAS, reticular activating system, is dialed into finding simple strategies to help improve people's lives.
That is so true. And my own life with the practice. That is very true. I'm looking for those simple, like this, like the Wingman's Path. Oh, just practice for 1 minute. Just practice for 1 minute. That's great. I love that.
Love that.
Thank you for that explanation, actually.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's 1:55, and I want to just actually offer you that forgiveness decree if you're interested in just actually hearing it out. And what I'll do is I'll send you the head, heart, and hand decree booklet, and then literally there's dozens of different mantras, prayers, rituals that you can really bring into your own practice. And then you can memorize them and do them while you're driving, for instance. And then you're transmuting your karma, collective karma. You're serving your higher self in being able to transmute karma that you've got, that maybe because you chose the left-handed path of power over people, which is love, which is the right-handed path, and wisdom is in the center, which is the threefold flame within the sacred chamber of the heart.
Okay. That's new to me, but I love that.
Yeah, that's the teachings of the ascended masters. And so kind of what I've been plugging into over the last year. And Azriel actually was the one that introduced me to Michael Seegers, who really helped me go onto a deeper dive and created the Michael and Laura show with him to answer a lot of these questions. And the first video that we did is actually spiritual warfare and the nature of evil. E-veil, because energy veils over the truth is what evil truly is. And also in Scrabble, if you spell evil backwards, it's live. So to live backwards is what evil means. The devil lived backwards, literally.
I love your Scrabble connections a lot. You definitely tie them in, and it's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Sort of like the dog is God type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I do a lot of work that way.
I would love you to send me that. I would very much appreciate it. I would look forward to practicing it and I'm giving you my feedback on it as well. I mean, not that you need my feedback. The ascended masters are telling you it's fantastic. Michael Gross jumping in there.
Well, who knows who you were before you came here, Michael?
I think about it a lot. And it's funny you should say that, because one of the things I talk about, especially when something's going wrong, and there's a lesson to be learned, and I often say, look, this lifetime that we are in is just one of many, right? We're bigger than our physical bodies right now. Right. We know that, so when something is physically pain, let's say, because sometimes it's hard to not focus on that, I start thinking about, it's like a hockey season. That's how long our life is. It's like a hockey season in the 6 months in our eternity. One lifetime seems like is really like 6 months to our eternity. Yeah. So whenever I do that, I'm like, what? I can be in pain for 6 months to learn some good lessons that I need to learn. And I think when I do that again, of course, you're shifting your mind from negative to positive, and of course that you start moving back in the right direction, getting that energy going. So.
Well, you create flow and you separate yourself from the past, and you actually bring your soul fragments back from all of those trapped aspects of yourself that showed up to be released, if you're willing to actually face the momentums of energy that show up in the moment. So the forgiveness prayer is actually, I am forgiveness acting here, casting out all doubt and fear, setting men forever free with wings of cosmic victory. I am forgiveness acting here, casting out all doubt and fear, setting men forever free with wings of cosmic victory. There's a second verse that I'm not remembering, but there's just one. And if you do all of your decrees 3 times in a row, it adds power. Because it's the power of the 3 times 3, the threefold flame, the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Mother, Mater, Earth.
Another one. I like that. All right.
Didn't originate many of the things that I say in truth, because it's all just different packaging of things that were said by someone who then repeated it and repeated it and repeated it in the end. But
understood. Well, it's called the Forgiveness Pledge.
I think it's just I forget
That's all right.
I've fallen out of the practice. I've been a very naughty Chela of the path. Chela is a student of the path of ascension. Oh, okay. And basically I have not been doing my practice religiously because I have been putting my energy into everything else that I've been doing. And so that's been me falling off the bandwagon of the decrees, which is actually one of the most important things that we could do. Because if we are willing to transmute karma while we're driving, while if we are actually willing to practice to learn how to program ourselves in the moment to think peacefully, to access peace by having that practice in place already that we can access ahead of time in the moments of stress, that's how we create a sense of home within our hearts. That's where we balance love, wisdom, power.
I wouldn't have been able to use those words and say that to you, but experientially, I've experienced that because I know, because I do practice all the time, and I realize the value of that. And like for instance, I have become, you talk about driving in the car. I've become unconsciously competent at practicing positive energy, and in the car certainly. I never mind going for a longer drive because I am practicing almost the entire time and not even really thinking about it. So it just, yes. But to get to that point, you have to consciously practice. You have to consciously set your goal to practice this until you become unconsciously competent. Of course, you're what you have to be conscious. You have to be consciously competent before you can become unconsciously competent. I'm not saying that 100, whatever, but you know what I mean.
Completely.
Right.
You have to be consciously, cognizantly able to understand what you're doing in order to then become so good at knowing what you're doing that you can do that which you used to have to think about automatically because you've done it so many times. It's on autopilot, and it's just like your mind already has familiar neuro pathways, which was best explained in something that I had watched as a field of grass.
Okay.
Neuro pathways are like fields of grass where you walk into a field and then your neuro pathway is the path that you choose. And the more times you choose that one path, then the more ingrained and beat down that particular path becomes compared to other areas that are less fresh, like, more freshly beat down, right?
Right.
So
it's a good explanation. I like it.
Yeah, it was the best one that I've ever heard for neuro pathways. So in terms of today, it is 1 hour, 1 minute, 11 seconds into our here. So we're going to wrap it up today and simply say, if you have received value from the conversation Michael Gross and myself, Laura J, have been having today, then we would love for you to stay connected with both of us. We both have groups. So make sure, if you are not already a member of the Wingman's Path to Positivity on Facebook, you join so that you are able to connect with Michael and everyone else who is waiting to be a wingmate with you. And
a lot of wingmates. Lots
of wingmates, yes. And if you have any of the wingmates that are interested in being where misfits fit, home for soulful seekers, that's my group, because I truly believe that all of us are here to understand who and whose we came here to be. Always were, always will be, and only feel separate from when we place a word around who we actually allow ourselves to dream ourselves capable of becoming.
I love that. Well, if you're able to dream it, you should be able to achieve it, right? I mean, what is it? Conceive, believe, achieve. Right. Yeah. So, and you know what? We're ending. I'll let us end on that note. Thank you. You're fabulous. Wonderful to speak with you. I love your group and I love your conversation. So
thank you so much, Michael. Truly, it's been so beautiful. And I want to say as the last point here that this conversation came about because I reached out to Michael and I was clear about what I was looking for. I wanted to be able to help him use his message and get it out to a wider audience because he's doing good things in this world. And so I want you to know that this conversation only happened because I took a risk and so did he. And so all of it all of life is about the risk, and you can't prepare for risk. When risk shows up as an opportunity, even if it, however many people showed up today, some people say, oh, how many people do you think will tune in order for me to decide whether this will be worth it? And the fact is if you received value from it today, then I know in my heart of hearts that it absolutely was worth it. And I know that I received value, that I was up leveled by this conversation, and that I can't wait to bring Michael to you again in future, because conversations of this kind truly need to continue. So thank you, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And I look forward to it as well. I look forward to the next conversation as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye.